Hello, my name is Chris Nelson, and I forgot to put my background on so you can see the whole mess behind me. Geez, I'm not prepared today. Hold on a second. Okay, much better. Hello, my name is Chris Nelson. Site is evolveconscience.org. This is another episode of the Great Work Launchpad, episode 10, continuation of Shadow Work, part 8. And I'm going to be looking at why is it the solution. So I'm going to put the link for the video ninja for anyone who wants to come take part in this discussion. Hold on a second. All right. Yeah, had a little hiccup. I got everything else ready ahead of time, but I forgot to put up my my thing. Yeah, so anyone who wants to come, I've said this before. This is to help people get initiated into the great work, the true great work, the one great work of ending our enslavement, ending evil, ending immorality in the aggregate scale. So people can come on. If you want to present a specific topic, I can give you like a forum here online. You can present something, talk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So you can contact me at my site and let me know. Yeah. But back to the topic. So last week I said that the next episode was going to be learning how to think. But I decided to change things up a little bit instead of going into learning how to think specifically. So this episode is tied to learning how to think, but it's not specifically learning how to think in general. So we're going to get into why. When you're talking about why, that's the causal factors, and that's part of like learning how to think is figuring out the why of something so that you can figure out a solution for it. Hey Brendan, how's it going?
Howdy, howdy. How you doing?
All right. Yeah, so explaining the switch up from learning how to think, we're going to go into like, I guess it's like a subset of learning how to think, but more specific, not in the general aspect of learning how to think, but more related to the great work, and learning how to think about why the great work is the solution, but more specifically, as the title of the show is the shadow work. Why is it the solution? So we all know the crux of all this, the causal factor, is moral knowledge, right? So that's what underlies it all. But moral knowledge, moral truth, natural law, objective morality, that is the most important thing to learn. But once you learn it, if that's all you're doing, then that's not enough. That's not going to change anything. You need to do that shadow work to face yourself internally and align with that moral truth. Otherwise, all you're doing is knowing it, but you're not applying it to your own state of being. So you need to become a different person. That's that shadow work, that inner alchemy, that inner work that we have to do. That's why this is the solution. Morality and understanding it is the overall most important thing. But if all you do is know it, then nothing's going to change. So this is the crux of why is it the solution related to shadow work, because you need to integrate it within yourself. And shadow work can go on for your whole life. And the point here for why it is the solution is for dealing with your internal shit to get you to accept moral truth, to embrace moral truth, and then to embody and live moral truth. And then obviously the whole point of this great work Launchpad is to then teach it. And that's eventually what you get to, is to teach it. But first you got to learn it, and then you got to integrate it by doing that shadow work of seeing how you're failing to live up to it and reconstruct yourself, burn away the impurities and purify yourself in the light of moral truth and that fire, and remake yourself anew as a phoenix reborn from the ashes. You want to bounce off that, and then I can give some more
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, because you're talking about a integration and applying it in your real life and into the real world. So you've shattered your reality, and you going through you understand what that feels. Then you realize that there may be inner work that needs to be done in order for you to apply this, because without doing those steps, then kind of like we talked about earlier, those cracks in those foundations would be that trauma, that trauma that needs to be healed, those aspects that need to be help discover those things that you may have suppressed yourself. Because if you try to do this kind of work without healing those cracks or healing those wounds, then like with any foundation, something can seep through, and things start to crumble and fall down. So the importance of the shadow work, that integration, is to become more whole, to b- help become more integrated and have that integrity. So when it comes to doing this work, when it comes to doing things in the future, when it comes to building relationships, when it comes to help creating, then you have a firm basis. And when it comes to conscious creation, then you have the tools that are going to be necessary in whatever you decide to do along, in your journey. So yeah, sort of like we, how we talk about the phoenix, is that rebuilding, that growing out of the ashes would be that internal health discovery, and doing that shadow work to be healed, and symbolic of that that second I'm sorry, that death, so you can be reborn again as something new, as something more whole, as something more fulfilled, as something more knowledgeable. So then therefore you really will have those tools, because without those tools along this journey, then that trauma, those cracks, something will always seep in.
Yeah, well said. So yeah, that's the reason, because we're talking about causal factors a bit, I guess last, well, the whole thing is like a causal factor in general, the shadow work.
Yeah.
But I wanted to explain it more so people get an understanding of like why it's important to understand the shadow work aspect. And the also related to this aspect of causality is the great work. That's the, like, so the one great work or the true great work, that's the external component. And that's the causal mechanics of creating a moral good and ordered world of true freedom. And then you have, so to parallel that external component, there's the internal component of the inner great work, the inner work. And so that's why it's important, because these are the causal mechanics of how we're going to change the world. And this causal mechanism isn't going to happen just by teaching the great work, just by teaching the subjects of, oh, this is self-knowledge, and this is shadow work, and this is objective morality, and this is this, and whatever, all the important things people need to learn. But you need to first integrate that yourself, and you could be in a process of integrating it, and like there's degrees of moral alignment, as we've talked about several times in this podcast series so far. So you could know the right thing to do, but you could not be there yet. And that's not to say that you shouldn't talk about it until you're aligned with it. You could still talk about it and say that you're still working on it, but you know that that's the direction to head in, and that's that's the road you're on, and you're trying to get to that destination, but you're not there yet. But you can still talk about it. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because there's this aspect of hypocrisy. So if you're not working on it at all, you're not doing the shadow work, try to integrate the knowledge and remake yourself as the phoenix, and you're not doing, you don't have that as a goal, you're not working on it, you're not trying to eventually bring that into you, and all you're going to do is this external causal mechanism of the great work of teaching, then you're being a hypocrite. So there's this interplay, this mix that you need to do with the two. So the shadow work, as I mentioned at the beginning, shadow work can go on for your whole life. And just because that's ongoing doesn't mean you can't talk about the things that you haven't integrated in yourself. But if you are talking about it and you're not doing that, or you don't have it as a goal and something you're working on, then you are being a hypocrite, because you're telling people, hey, look, this is what's going to solve things, and this is what you should be doing, but then you're not doing it yourself, or you're not working on doing it, then you end up being a hypocrite. So it's not that you have to be completely aligned with it in order to speak of it. No, but you should have it on your plate as things that you're working towards. Otherwise, you are a hypocrite, and then you shouldn't be talking about it if you're just like being two-faced, I guess we could say, and that's not even the direction that you're trying to go in. You want to say anything about that?
Yeah, man. Growing up, one of my and I was real young, but one of the songs that I deeply remember was Barry White, "Practice What You Preach." And I didn't like quite understand that song when I was younger, but he had a very deep voice, and that song popped in my head when he was talking that. Because um, we have to practice what we preach too, and not be hypocrites. And like Chris said, you may not necessarily, be 100%, in living in harmony with all this, but it goes back to that first, rule of initiation. Don't lie to yourself about it. So you can be honest and say, hey, yes, I understand this stuff, but I may not necessarily be where I want to be, when it comes to doing all this stuff. And then therefore you can, have goals to maybe achieve that. And then too, another thing that came to mind was authenticity, being authentic when it comes to doing this stuff. Because yeah, we interact, online. So it is, very easy to, not be able to see if somebody is consistent with what they say. So, you kind of have to, build a good pattern to recognize. So if you are going to do this stuff, you really need to be authentic, because we don't need, hypocrites and people who just copying you. Um, but we really do need true people who understand the stuff. So when it comes to, these deep conversations, you can, speak from knowledge and experience in that way, try to help inspire others. But it is about that integrity, you know, because without doing that shadow work, when it comes to change, you know, that's what it's all about, is change. You have something and you have this transmutation. So when it comes to taking in this moral truth and this moral knowledge, like Chris said, it's one thing to understand it from, the realm of causality, but how do you go about integrating it? And then without that shadow work, without doing that inner work and doing those inner journeys and healing that trauma. When it comes to integrating that, you're still kind of building on a shaky foundation, and that's the problem. So in order to be doing this for a decent amount of time held the correct way, the shadow work goes along hand in hand with that moral knowledge. And that's why I've always said, to truly discover what natural law is, it's going to take you within yourself. Because once you understand what how right and wrong are, these moral truths, then you start to analyze your own self and you start to analyze your own behaviors. Because first you have to start doing this. You have to start looking at your behaviors, and then start going within. Then you can start to go deeper within your thoughts. You can go into deeper forms of how contemplation. Then when you start looking at your behaviors, then you can start looking at your experiences. Then you can start to maybe look at past previous engagement from earlier in life. And in that way, you can start to get a better understanding of who you truly are. Because at the end of the day, most of us don't really truly know who we are, because there's so much mind control, there's so much put on us between, parents, society, or all this stuff. A lot of people don't really truly know, who they are. So you have to sit down and be able to engage with those inner thoughts, those inner feelings, those inner emotions, those inner inconsistencies, those inner things that may make you feel uncomfortable. So then at the end of the day, you can learn to work with those. Because if you aren't familiar with those things, then there's someone or some institution out there that's going to always try to exploit those things. So it's best to know as much about yourself. That way you can really empower yourself. Because if you still have the inconsistency, then there's still work to be done. And at the end of the day, there's always work to be done when it comes to, not just the great work, but the inner work. Because there's always something to learn. There's always something to discover. So yeah, practice what you preach as best as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Here's an old infographic. Just I wanted to mention the aspect of the plane of effects and the plane of causes. So on the right side, you have a person, it's a child, and so what we do with our body is what we end up creating, what we become, and how we live, and the actions we take, and that's the effects that we create into existence, into reality. But that all comes from the roots, and the roots are the root causal factor. They're a source of generation. These are the foundational principles that we have or that we don't have. And that corresponds on the left side with the tree. Um, so the blue would be the healthy quality stuff, true principles, and the red would be false principles that you take in as axioms and you live by as foundations in your life. And then the result is a healthy fruit or a poisonous fruit. And this is the causal plane. This is the internal domain. And this is where we need to change to produce a different world by our actions. So I just wanted to make that clear of, again, the importance of the why, right? Because I have that here is what we're getting at is why is it the solution? So we need to understand the why. And yeah, I have some infographics as part of my natural law presentation on causality that I was going to go into a bit when I have them here. Because in understanding causality is important for understanding natural law and objective morality in depth and how that works with the law of freedom. So that's why I felt that doing this episode on why is it the solution was a good segue into learning how to think. And so the Merovingian here, he's from the second Matrix movie, and he's in his his dialogue, he's talking about why are they there, and that they were sent there, and they're there to get the keymaker, but that's what they're after, but they don't know why they need the keymaker. And it's an interesting dialogue. And so this is another slide from Mark Passio, and here's the Merovingian, where he says, why are you here? And Morpheus says, well, you know why we are here. And Merovingian responds, I am a trafficker of information. I know everything I can. The question is, do you know why you are here? And Morpheus says, well, we are looking for the keymaker. And the Merovingian says, oh yes, it is true, the keymaker, of course. But that is not a reason. That is not a why. So in part, it is the reason and the why. Like, they wouldn't be there if they didn't want the keymaker. So that's us. It's like it's multi-leveled, right? So the exoteric reason, you could look at it as, well, they want the keymaker. That's the reason they're there. That's why they are there. But the esoteric, the occulted reason, well, that's deeper. And they don't even know it. Because the oracle knows, but she didn't tell them. But the Merovingian knows. So he's saying, that's not the reason, that's not the why. So I just wanted to interject that it is a surface level reason and why, but it's not the true reason why. That's not the, what are you going to do with the keymaker? Well, we don't know. We're just told to go get him, so we're going to go get him. So you don't really have that causal power of understanding, which is what the Merovingian is going to explain. So he says, the keymaker himself, his very nature, is a means, not an end. So that's that surface level is a means for those deeper level causal understandings. Why to achieve that goal? It's a means to a goal. It's not the end, it's the means to the end. And so to look for him is to be looking for a means to do what? And Neil says, you know the answer to that question. And Merovingian says, but do you? You think you do, but you do not. You are here because you were sent here. You were told to come here, and then you obeyed. It is, of course, the nature of all things. You see, there is only one constant, one universal. It is the only one truth. Causality. Action, reaction, cause, effect. And Morpheus responds with, everything begins with choice. And the Merovingian responds fallaciously, says, no, wrong. It depends on how you want to look at it. We can get into that after. I have a dual perspective on that. Depends on how you want to look at it. So Merovingian says, no, wrong. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without. And this is the nature of the universe. We struggle against it. We fight to deny it. But it is, of course, pretend. It is a lie. Causality. There is no escaping it. We are forever slaves to it. Our only hope, our only peace, is to understand it, to understand the why. Why is the only real source of power. Without it, you are powerless. And this is how you come to me. Without why, without power, another link in the chain. Neil says it's not over. Merovingian says, yeah, Keymaker's mine. I got no reason to give him up. No reason at all, because you're powerless. You don't even know why you need him. Even if they did know, he still wouldn't give it to them because it's something they need that's important. But he's just trying to be his clever asshole. Like, how? You don't even know why. I'm not going to give him up to you. You're super ignorant. Yeah, you want to say something about that?
Still one of the greatest scenes in, well, possibly the greatest scene in any movie, and possibly the most misrepresented. Because he's talking about, what creates things in reality, how causality, how what creates, motion and creates things and starts things, how causality to why. And that's the thing, is we have to understand why is it, why are we continue to do the things, that we're doing, why is it that, that we are enslaved? Why is it that slavery still, continues? So then once you ask that why, then you're actually asking a deeper question to me. You're kind of going into that second form of the trivium, because then once you ask those questions, then you have to gather information in order to get the answer. So it's like you're kind of opening up the doors to, you know, for real problem solving, and to really start that trivium process, because that's right there is what should get the internal cognition, starting, that fire, that mentation going within the mind to want to, you know, get those answers and to, want to, um, you know, develop that will to, to answer that why. So that right there, that simple word why, it should be what starts cognition, thoughts, her mental activity, if you truly care, to want to ask that, deeper question. And it's almost like that's that one kind of like philosophical word that, gets the mind thinking. You have the idea of, the man sitting on the rock and he just asks himself, why is it, and you can, go into all kind of, different questions. But yeah, that right there. And that's what this right here, how this one scene is trying to hell explain. And, how when Mark Passer broke it down, of course, at first I didn't quite understand it, because it takes time to understand this stuff. And then, you have to take in, of course, the knowledge. Then, as you take more knowledge, it's like, oh, okay, then you take in more knowledge. And then now it even makes more sense. And, then you really start to understand, or, you get a better understanding of the importance of causality and how, everything we do has an effect, and everything that we have done has had a form of cause, and how it is this infinite feedback loop of cause and effect. And that's the thing that really kind of starts to like kind of bring you back to reality, like in a sense, kind of, because then you really start to see like, man, like we're here from all, like the previous, things that we've done, like leading up to this very moment, because it's all connected. But yeah.
Yeah. Um, Grasping causality is super important, and yeah, there's that infinite like regress of what we did and those who came before us, the past lives of people, and we're the future lives, and then there's going to be lives after us. And related to karma, I've gone into that in my karma presentation, how the actions of those before us created the world that they created, that led to the world that we're in, and we're all
Yep.
tied in that chain of causality of where we are now because of the misdeeds and misbehaviors of
Yep.
everyone who came before us, and then we were conditioned into that world to perpetuate it until we break out and try to change it. And that's what keeps the condition as it is. But it's changeable. It takes a lot of work because of this aspect of what we're talking about here is the inner and the outer, the external work and the internal work. Well, the external work only happens as a result of the internal work, and for the external to change, it's based on the aggregate changing. So that means the collection, the collective of everyone. So that means all the individuals, or the majority of individuals, have to change. Hence the importance of why the great work, and hence the inner work is the solution. Because you got to teach it to people, as I refer to M2, the higher morality level 2. And then everyone needs to do that inner work of M1, that basic morality of aligning with morality,
Yep.
and then they can teach it. And that's why we're talking about being authentic and integrity, not being a hypocrite. You got to integrate it into yourself and not just think you're doing that higher morality when you still haven't worked on yourself to integrate it, or you're not making that a part of your efforts to progress towards and doing the work you need to do to properly align yourself with it. And the thing I mentioned about the infographic was the thing about the Merovingian when he says, or Morpheus responds that everything begins with choice, and because Merovingian was saying the causality is like the foundation for everything, or everything begins with causality. So yes, in a universal sense, before there is any being with free will in the universe, there's the universe and there's causal mechanisms in play. So everything does begin with causality. But from the other perspective, once you get to the emergence of free will, is for things to be created in terms of the human world that we can create, it does begin with choice. So are you going to go left or are you going to go right down the road? Well, that begins with choice. And then an action is taken that then changes the direction of your movement. So it all begins with choice in that sense. So it depends, it's like a semantic argument, a semantic misunderstanding between Morpheus and Merovingian. The Merovingian was right and Morpheus was right, but they were looking at it from two different perspectives.
Yeah.
And so free will choice, creating effects. And when you create those effects, well, there's no free will choice to experience them. One, there's free will choice, and causality is there's no choice, which is why the Merovingian was saying that we are slaves to causality, because in a sense, yes, all the laws of nature, the natural laws, like the law of freedom, once you make the choice and once your behavior is enacted, well, you don't have a choice in the result. And that's how we're affecting reality, by our choices. And then as everyone affects reality in the aggregate, well, that establishes a condition of reality, and that condition affects us. So in terms of, the purpose of the great work to end our enslavement, that would be our allowance, our tolerance, our acceptance, and our conformity, and our support of authority, of the belief in the legitimacy of authority to control and coerce others who have not initiated harm. That results in the overall condition of us being enslaved. So long as the majority of us accept that into our mindset and we live with accepting that into our lives, then we're going to get the natural law result of the condition where we have no choice but to live in that world because we've accepted the premise of the legitimacy of authority.
Yeah. Sort of like we are in this slave, state due to, how, like you said, of everyone's belief, support, that's the, how that's the causality, happen. But our free will choice is to do other and live, how the right moral, life and do the right moral thing. But we are still, entrapped because everyone else, how the majority is supporting this, this immoral, slave way, this condition. So, it's like we're all connected to it, through that causality,
Yeah,
which sucks.
We're all a link in
So,
the chain, like the Merovingian says. We're all
yeah.
connected. That's why, Passio says, we are bound by the choices of others. We are bound by the
Yes.
behaviors of others. And that is true because of how the law of freedom functions, and this aggregate
Yeah.
moral or immoral behavior produces the condition of aggregate freedom or slavery in greater or lesser degrees. And so our freedom as an individual, your freedom, is bound by others. And that's why you as an individual will never truly be free so long as the condition of the world is such that the majority accept, support, condone, tolerate, and promote this belief that some can make you do things that are immoral or prevent you from doing things that are moral just because they say so. And yeah, I'll get into this. I think there's 7 slides. I'll present it in a later presentation, but it's related to, I'm explaining the Merovingian and aspects of the Matrix movies.
Are these newer slides?
Yeah, no one's seen these
Okay.
before.
Oh, sweet.
So causality, right? Merovingian says why, the reason, and we're talking about purpose as well, because in the beginning of the second movie, no, it's not the beginning. Well, I don't know. Somewhere maybe before. It's Neo's first encounter with Agent Smith, and Smith comes out. Yeah, so here I have they're not finalized here. You see at the image Smith purpose there. So I have they're going to be reworked when I do the thing properly. Smith comes out and he's talking about purpose. I don't remember exactly what it is, but this explanation is based on his thing. I should have had the quote here because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But he's talking about purpose and meaning. And it's purpose that drives us, purpose that binds us. And he goes on. I just remember that part there.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I know the exact scene. Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're on like the kind of courtyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's talking to him, and then
Yeah.
the several copies come out, and his purpose that binds us, purpose that drives us. So, and this is also in the. I have it visually represented in my breakdown of the Aquinas essay, which Mark read like 2-3 times during his podcasts over like 10 years. So that Aquinas essay is this person who just wrote something as a response in like, I think, an InfoWars forum. And it encapsulated some understanding of the law of freedom and objective morality. And in there, it's, there's this goal. You have a goal and end. So people say they want freedom. What are the requirements to fulfill that freedom? So you're going to have a purpose, and that's the reason why you do things. But if you don't actually understand why the condition is this way and the causal factors that created the condition, then you don't know how it was created, and you don't know what the requirements are that are needed in order to change it. So you could have a purpose and you could have a reason for why you're doing certain behaviors, but are your behaviors actually going to serve that purpose? Well, when it comes to creating true freedom, for most people it isn't. In the so-called truth and freedom movement, they just believe things that they're going to engage in, that they think are going to create the results that they want. So they don't have the true understanding of the root cause for their purpose to manifest. They don't have the real reason and the why to empower themselves, which is what Merovingian was talking about. You're powerless. You have nothing. So cause and effect are part of the dynamics of the universe. Causality is part of human behavior. We create actions, and those actions result in effects created into the world. Everything humans have created demonstrates causality, because it wouldn't be here without us. Ta-da, there's causality, there's the proof. The car wouldn't be here if there were no humans creating cars on the planet. So there is a reason the world is the way it is, a purpose, a why. Human behavior made it this way. There is also an internal why, reason, and purpose for creating that external behavior. The why is what drives our will to act. These are underlying causal motivations that drive behavior. Purpose defines us as we are defined and judged by our behavior. So that's how purpose defines us, because your purpose is going to is your motivation. Again, this ties into care and your drive, your motivation, your purpose. Do you care about that purpose? Well, then you're going to try to enact behavior to actualize that purpose and make it manifest. So that's how purpose defines us, because it's affecting our internal mechanisms for why we do things. Not only, so there's the why things are happening in the external world, which are reflected in the internal makeup through the law of mentalism and correspondence, that then produce that external result, but it's based on that internal drive and that purpose. So to change any condition, the reason for why it exists must be known in order to do things differently. then what created that condition. You have to know how you got there to know how to get out and not take the wrong path again. Knowing why empowers one to target the root cause and not engage in guesswork or half measures. So we've talked about it earlier, moral knowledge, that's what it's all about. We need moral truth, we need objective morality, but we need that, and we need the self-knowledge to unlock our potential. We need to bring that into ourselves to unlock our potential to create a heaven on earth, so to speak. So the main reason why we are in the condition of enslavement is because of a lack of moral knowledge. Generations are not teaching objective morality, leading to a morally uneducated population that ignorantly does and tolerates immorality. This underlying condition in consciousness is possible due to the motivations or lack thereof. A drive, motivation, purpose, and sense of meaning oriented on objective morality and a higher will or higher self is not present. A drive to pursue happiness, comfort, and other pleasure traps are overwhelmingly present instead. These subconscious drives lead to our choices and behaviors that focus on selfish concerns instead of higher self-concerns aligning with objective morality. Introspection and reflection is inner work that can overcome the lower-willed desires to aspire and be inspired by higher-willed desires and cares. Moral knowledge, this is a continuation. What we don't know isn't outright killing us, right? So there's this knowing what you don't know can kill you. Well, what we don't know isn't outright killing us, specifically, explicitly, literally that way, but it is enslaving us. So we're still alive. It's not killing us, but it's enslaving us. Our minds are controlled, governed, locked into false ways of thinking and perceiving the world. We don't see the enslavement that we support, accept, tolerate, and normalize. We don't see it because our inner constitution is constructed to want and support it. So people don't see this slavery because they support that slavery through the mechanism of government and authority. So they want authority, they want government, they want the protector, they want the caretaker. So they don't see it for what it is because their inner mental state, their mind state, their worldview is driven to want it and support it. So they have the cognitive dissonance where they're not going to see the reality because that's not the reality that they've been conditioned with, and even when you present it to them, they fight against it. We don't know ourselves and what drives us to behave the way we are. The inner work to become aware of how we are driven to support the system of enslavement is how we can unlock and free our minds. Again, part of the matrix, the first one is to free your mind, the Free Your Mind conference. Then we can unlock the external cage of control and enslavement we have erected around us to live in true freedom. Knowledge isn't enough. You have to want to be free and morally educate others widely via public content. Care or desire is the driving force that will generate a world where we get out of the system of control or enslavement. So that's what we need to care about. That's what my presentation on truly caring about being enslaved in Funnel 4 was about. So this whole care and desire to drive yourself to do that moral education through public content. And that's what the purpose of this whole series is on the Great Work Launchpad. And the image is free those that want to be free. I think that's at the end when he's like talking to the machine world on the payphone. And he's saying that he's going to free those who want to be free. I should have put more detail because now I'm going to be like questioning what image did I want to put there. So we got to be key makers. So if anyone's seen the second one, second matrix, this is what they're after, right? The Merovingian quote, looking for the key maker. Why? Well, he helps unlock our potential, which is what I was talking about before, the self-knowledge to unlock our potential. Keys unlock doors, opening doors of knowledge to the source, root causal factor of our enslavement is understanding the architecture of the system of control and enslavement. So there you should see a few keywords that relate to the second Matrix movie. The keymaker opens the door of the knowledge to the source. That's what they called where they were going with the keymaker. They got to get to the source. Well, that's what the source was. There was the understanding of the root causal factor of
Yeah.
of their enslavement. And that's understanding the architecture, because he was the architect in the source. They got to go to the source because the architect is there. And the architect is the one who built the system of control. So when we open the doors of knowledge to the source root causal factor of our enslavement, that is understanding the architecture of the system of control and enslavement. So this is the allegory of the second movie and how it relates to our condition. So we are building it together, though, and some more than others. And the reason why is the architecture of how we are doing that. So the reason why we are building the system of enslavement, well, that's the architecture of what is constructed and how we are doing that. Well, how we are doing that is ignorance of objective morality, and therefore accepting, tolerating, justifying, and supporting the belief in legitimacy of authority to control others. And why our behavior is creating our enslavement is the key. The problem or effect of our enslavement needs to be known. Sure. And a lot of people do that. It has value and content in itself. We've talked about that in this series of how that's the lower level part of the great work, just knowing that there is enslavement or that there is a problem in order to figure out why it's there and how to solve it. But addressing the undesirable condition while being ignorant of why it was caused, like feeding it with reforms or voting, changing the chairs on the sinking ship, means you have no power to truly affect the change desired. So this is what the Merovingian, as an allegory to our world, is talking about, that they're looking for the keymaker because they want to do something with him, but they don't know why. They're ignorant of, the whole purpose in the first paragraph here is getting to the source root causal factor of our enslavement. And that's in the second movie. They're trying to get to the source to, it turns out, to talk to the architect to understand why the matrix of control is there. So being ignorant of why it was caused means you have no power to truly affect the change desired, which is what the Merovingian was talking about. They want him to get to the answer of why the matrix is there, but at the time they don't even know that that's what they're getting him for. So at least, they're on the path to getting an answer of why, but at that point when they meet the Merovingian, they don't even have that knowledge. They're just, go get here, follow the order, go get him, and then you'll find out the next step after. So they don't even know why, and that's why the Merovingian's mocking them. So this is wanting to unlock the doors of the prison, but not knowing how to do it and actually get out of the prison. So they're there, they want to end the matrix, right? They want to be free, they want to stop the machines, they want freedom. So they want to unlock the doors of the prison, but they don't know how to do it and get out of the prison, because they don't even know, the architect, why the matrix was constructed. They don't know the root causal factor of their own enslavement. So we need to become a keymaker to unlock the doors of knowledge and understand how and why the system of control and enslavement is there, and ultimately understand how to end it. Is this the same one? Okay, no. A keymaker has keys to unlock doors. The keymaker, so this is explaining the symbolism of the keymaker. The keymaker is a means to imparting the understanding of why the world is how it is, not the why itself. The keys are the whys and the relationship between the whys. The causality of why the condition exists because of behavior, because of choices, because of motivations. So each one is a why in a chain, a causal chain. And that's what causality is, getting to the why. Why did this effect happen? Because of this causal thing that created the effect. So the motivations, well, the behavior, the condition exists because of behavior, because of choices, because of motivations, because of the mindset, because of information influence that led to building that mindset, that self-view, and that worldview. Ultimately, it's the key maker and the keys It's the means to understand how to end the self inflicted suffering of creating or supporting our enslavement. The keys unlock the doors to specific cause effect relationships. So that could be for anything, but we're talking about our enslavement here, our collective enslavement, that these keys for these specific relationships. As the Matrix states, you sense there is something wrong, but you don't know what it is. And this is what the Morpheus tells Neo when he's about to get him out. Like, all your life you sense there's something wrong, but you don't know what it is. And we've talked about that before. Like, this is part of the awakening phase where something clicks in someone. They watch something, maybe a documentary, or they're becoming more aware of, like, things don't make sense. Like, what is going on? Like, this
Yeah.
thing's wrong. It's like in the back of their mind, and that's what begins that knowledge quest and that spiritual path of truth, where you start asking questions, like you say, asking the why and trying to figure things out. And until then, you're just ignorant, going about your life and focusing on the pleasure pursuit or your familial responsibilities, your job, or taking your kids to activities or whatever. And just, the way the world is the way it is, and I can't change anything, so I'm just going to ignore it and fuck it all. Many people have this unconscious sense that intuitively bubbles up to the conscious senses. There is a recognition of a system of control as a problem, but no understanding it architecturally, or why it exists, nor what is needed to bring about a truly better world. They get caught in false solutions like religion, politics, money, or New Ageism. So there's so much of that. Oh, Trump's the savior. Oh, no, you got to go Democrat because Trump's the Hitler and he's going to destroy freedom. Religion, it's Protestant, Catholic. No, it's this or that or whatever, this other religion. Oh, it's the money system. We got to get rid of the Fed. Oh, it's crypto's the solution.
Yeah, Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like all these false solutions. They think they're like, one thing might be better than the other, but it's not an actual solution in itself. It's just an amelioration of a condition, but it's not going to actually bring about like an elimination of the system of control that people are beginning to understand. They want to be more free. They don't want the control. They don't recognize that as enslavement, but they don't want the control. They want to be more free. And they think that these little things that are going to give them, like, oh, here's a little bit more freedom. Oh, that's the
Yeah.
solution right there. But it's not. And Jesus Christ, I got a lot of slides here. All right. Did you wanna say anything before we progress?
Just talk about purpose real quick, because like that's what we are trying to point at when you're doing the shadow work, is when you start to go within yourselves, then you start to understand and develop that purpose, and you start to get a better sense of the importance of it. And then you know you you hear about transmutation all the time, in alchemy. Well, when you look at how society is set up, you are conditioned to live in pretty much a realm of hell desire. But once you go within yourself, you can transmutate that desire into purpose, because that's really what's going to be what drives you. And that's what drives me, is knowing that we are enslaved and I want to end slavery. That's what drives me. That's why we come on here constantly, and we're just saying the same thing over, and we are repeating this stuff because we understand that this is the true solution. This is what drives us. This is our purpose. So there are a shit ton of things that we can talk about, but those don't involve the true solution. This is the true solution right here. And this is what drives me, because this is my purpose right here, is to help try to educate and spread this knowledge, and to continue to serve truth and principles, and to continue to learn as much as I can and understand how myself, because that should be one's driving force in reality, because that's what the true purpose is: to serve truth, to serve and adhere to principles, and to make the right moral choice. What more purpose and desire could one want?
Yeah, that's the ultimate higher will and higher self is to
Yeah.
work to creating a moral world where we can the goal, that end goal, that purpose that we're trying to achieve is a world of true freedom. And that's that the higher will that mm, people need to activate and activate or be born within them rather than their lower will of their personal desires and what they want to do personally for themselves and
Yeah.
what's comfortable, or maybe it's not comfortable. Maybe they just want to work out, and so that involves pain, but it's just something they want for themselves. So whether there's pain or discomfort involved in it, it's about your own personal goals. But this is about a higher goal, agape, the
Yeah.
wider form of care, of love, where you're caring for not just your own condition, but the condition of all, because you're trying to create true freedom for all. You're trying to end the enslavement for all.
It's like one of the greatest forms of love and care, and like people don't even see it, like people don't even grasp it. It's like the ultimate gift to give somebody, and they don't even understand it.
Yeah, they're not aware of it, and for them, it's just like, yeah, some of the things like I think in Passio's podcast, in his early ones, talking to like Daryl Rollins, I think about 9/11, and some people's mindset is that if you're trying to figure out the world and what's true and what's false, and if you're trying to make the world better, then that's arrogant of you. Like you're an arrogant person to think
Mm,
that what you think, oh, you think you know the truth, oh, you think you can make the world better, oh, you're an idiot, how arrogant of you. It's like some people are so degraded in their consciousness, and it's like
yeah.
just focus on your own life, just do things for yourself and for those you care about, and that's what
Oh,
matters. So
yeah.
even
Yeah.
even if you're doing this work, like you're saying, people aren't going to recognize it because they're just so focused on themselves and think that, well, you can't change anything, and oh, you think you have the truth, ho ho ho, you don't know,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
they
I've been
don't
told
know.
something similar too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been told something very similar. Yeah, someone told me because they recognized that I was more knowledgeable than the average person, they told me I should use that knowledge to my advantage and like manipulate people and
yeah.
get rich.
Join the Church of Satan, like Passio. That's why Passio did it. He wanted to do exactly that. That was his
Like
whole
this dude
reason.
told me to my face, he was like, man, he was like, with that amount of knowledge, he was like, you should be out there taking advantage of people. And I'm like, no, like that's the problem. That's morally wrong, man. Because if I
Yeah,
don't want it done to me, I'm not going to do it to somebody else. And I'll never forget that encounter. But
that's
yeah,
pretty
there are
low.
people out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the freedom movement here. What am I going to say about the freedom movement here? I don't remember.
There isn't one.
Ignorantly adding water to try to dry clothes. There you go. That describes the freedom movement right there. Hey, what are you doing, freedom movement, truth movement? Oh, you belong to the freedom and truth movement? Oh, great. Well, nice to see you adding water when you're trying to dry clothes. So that's the parallel with, freedom. Oh, you're trying to create freedom? Oh, I see you're doing a good job continuing to create slavery in your effort to create freedom. That's
Yeah.
the parallel here. So people who identify with an effort to propagate truth and or freedom, this is the truth and freedom movement, right? That's what they identify with, this effort to propagate truth and or freedom. And they say they want freedom. And they see how freedoms are being restricted more and more, but fail to correctly identify the root causal factors as to why this is happening. The majority of these so-called freedom-minded people continue to support the system of control and enslavement by supporting authority and government. How many bootlickers in the truth and freedom movement, you know? And they don't know what true freedom is, let alone how to create true freedom. People will remain in the power of authority and increase their control because they are being allowed to. So the people in power, in authority, they're going to just keep increasing their control because they're being allowed to. It's not going to go away. It's not going to become less. It's going to become more because the people who gravitate to those positions are the psychopaths who seek control, because normal people don't want control over other people. So in a rare case, you might have someone who's actually trying to make things better, but most of the time, people just want to control. And it could just be at a lower level where they just want to control things to benefit themselves. So that as a consequence of benefiting themselves and coming out on top, they're going to control things and control other people so that they come out on top. That's all part of the satanic mindset. So control and enslavement will progressively increase until moral education can solve the problem at the root causal level by not advocating and supporting the system of enslavement via the belief in authority. This belief is the why the slave system was created and is kept in place. Do what others say, obey, and fear the consequences of not obeying. The freedom movement is mostly people who want freedom for themselves. The my freedom, my survival, my life, my comfort. But they lack true care to be able to actually create true freedom for themselves. True freedom doesn't happen when you just look out for yourself. It's an aggregate condition. The freedom movement wants to work from the effects already created, the problems, the undesirable condition, and modify the problem that was already created. So we got a monetary system. Well, let's modify the monetary system. We got a political system. Let's modify the political system. We got a police and military force. Let's modify the police and military force. They just want to modify things and try to reorganize it in a different way and not end up with shit. But you're just going to be mixing shit around, and you're just going to get some more shit. And, as Pasio would say, I don't know, shit splatters or something like that. I forget the way he would say it, but yeah. If you're just working with shit, you're just going to get more shit. So people don't really understand what the hell they're even doing. They're just trying to modify the problem that was already created. These underlying causal reasons are not being addressed. They don't understand the problem. They don't understand why freedom is being degraded. They're trying to vote in lesser evils, creating political or economic changes, which keeps the slave system going. They aren't operating from the causal realm of knowing why freedom is being destroyed and not putting their energy into systems or dynamics that continue to degrade it. They think they are choosing rightly, wisely, but they aren't. They are manipulated and playing into dialectical mechanics of feeding their own enslavement, choosing the false, easy, lazy, quick fix of politics and voting. And we have illusions of choice, because that's one thing the Merovingian was saying, right? I think he specifically said the illusion, choice is an illusion, after Morpheus said everything begins with choice. So, that's the quote here. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without. But, as I was saying, I explained before, it's not an illusion, because you do have choice, and then that's where your power comes from, based on what you know. So if you know the causal root factors, the source of why something was created, then you can modify your behavior with that knowledge, and that wisdom is the power, because you're acting in reality. That's the power, because something is being done in reality. Whereas when it's internal, it's not power, it's a potential power. And again, unlocking our potential. This is all about unlocking our potential, and that self-knowledge. So the choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without, is what the Merovingian says. So your choices can be based on illusion, and unreality, falsity. You can believe something to be true and make choices based on that bad knowledge, which is the world we have now. Those with power to deceive and manipulate the minds of others know why they do what they do, contrasted to others who fall for their deception and don't truly know why they are doing it. They just believe what they're saying, and they just believe it, and then they act upon it. But they don't truly know why these people in power are saying the things that they're saying. They think that they are doing it to serve the will of others, while thinking they are following their own will alone, not the will of others. So that they do what people say. We're all influenced. We get influenced by people, and we behave based on that influence. And people think that they're following their own will, but they're actually following the will of others. And they act from ignorance of the real reason why they are doing what they do. So the media, the politicians, everyone, your parents influence you, and then you think you're making your own decision, and you think you're the one who knows why you're doing what you're doing. But a lot of the times it's just influence and tacit acceptance, just too much right brain of information coming in, not being critical, analyzing it, trying to see what the truth is, and then you just act on that information. And the political system is an example of false choices to serve the system of enslavement. Order followers who obey commands are explicitly, there's a mistake there, are explicitly being led by the will of others. Voting is being led by fear of a worse person winning and controlling things. That's what the winning is. It's this dialectical mechanics of, well, the Democrats suck, so Trump's going to be better. Trump's a Hitler, so vote Democrat. So they're all playing like, oh, one's going to be worse, so we got to vote for the other. Biden was a big joke. It's like the not Trump vote. We're like, oh, we can't have Trump again. Vote for the other guy,
Right.
no matter
Yeah.
who he is, no matter how dumb and senile.
Right. They would have
he is.
voted for anybody. Yeah.
Vote
Dumbasses.
anybody but Trump.
Yeah.
So voting by the fear of the worst person, the least person, the less worst person winning. Fear is the underlying causal motivation to fear someone worse coming in power, so you're going to vote for someone less worse, but you're still keeping the system of control and enslavement alive. You're perpetuating it, you're condoning it, you're actually supporting it. The fear of chaos for not choosing the perceived lesser evil. So if you don't choose the lesser evil, then this is the mathematics going on in the evaluations of people's minds is, well, if I don't vote for this other idiot, then the worst idiot's going to win and things are going to be even worse. And this is how hundreds of years, like a bunch of thousands and a million years, we're still going to be going around in this fucking retarded wheel of playing this game of, we got to vote for this guy because the other guy's worse. It's just going to go on forever until people like break out of it. It's just so retarded.
Yeah, it's like you have to laugh at it from like literally like just, cause it's just pure fucking stupidity.
It's
like,
a big joke.
Like how do people not see the fallacy and like the flaw in this? Like, I mean, you just, but like you say, it's just conditioning, mind control.
Yeah, that's that hamster wheel. Just gonna keep going round and round and keep playing both sides, or whether there's 5 sides, it doesn't matter. You're still keeping or it's the Green Party or Labor Party or this party or Energy Party. I don't know what other parties, but it's all the same shit. You're just keeping the enslavement system going. And well, this guy's better. Yeah, I'm gonna vote for him. Let's keep the enslavement going. So they think
it's the hopium.
Yeah, the hopium. Yeah.
Not the, because hell, we have a show coming out tomorrow. Yeah, called Hopium. But yeah, that hopium is real in people.
Yeah, especially with Trump. Boy, those Trumpers, they got full of it. And he did do good things. Like, hey, like, do you think any other president would have freed Ross Ulbricht except for like maybe Ron Paul? So like, you can do good things. It doesn't mean you're good overall. Still the enslavement system's there. He's like a psycho in other ways,
right?
A dirtbag, but it's like, okay, he did a good thing. Like, yeah, Ross Ulbricht's out of jail. Great. All right, he's still a piece of shit.
Right. That doesn't make you overall good human being. Yeah.
So the people think they're making a good and accurate choice. This goes back to the Aquinas essay, the perception of good, and why evil veils itself in good, to be perceived as good, because evil doesn't go around and be like, I'm evil. Hello, I just want to enslave you and murder you. Hey, support me. And people are, oh yeah, fucking right, man. I want to support you. Great, good job. Yeah, let's go for the enslavement. Oh, right on. I want that. That's not how it parades itself. So they think they're making good and accurate choices, or the only choice, right? Well, the only choice is to vote for not Trump because, goddamn, we can't have Trump again. It's the only choice. It's the only thing you can do. It's, again, this false dichotomy. Dialectical mechanics plays out so well. Divide and conquer and controlled opposition, all part of the dichotomy. So it's a false dichotomy. The choice was an illusion, and they don't see the other possible choices, like don't politic, don't do the politics. And those are You got the
Right.
choices.
Because their mind, hell, when their mind even tries to go to don't vote, then of course the social engineers have, installed another program. Well, remember, someone died for your right to vote. So then it's
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
so then it goes back to the bullshit. And yeah, it's just this, like this bullshit spider web. So then it's like, well, then I kind of feel bad. So then they still go and fucking vote, because that's the bullshit people try to say. Well, veterans died for your right to vote. Like, yeah,
Yeah, that one's a whole tangled web to unfurl.
yeah,
That one doesn't even make sense. But the main one is the fear of chaos, right? Because if you don't have
yeah,
government, well, there's gonna be more. There's gonna be gangs and roaming everywhere and warlords and enslaving everybody, and it'll be just so much worse. And yeah, maybe not. And even then, it's like Passio says, it's not everyone accepting and believing and tolerating and thinking that it's necessary to have this gang, this mafia in control. So there's a difference in the internal state of perception of that external force of control. Right now, it's the mafia gang that people want to be in control and they accept it because they want it. I think this is the last one. Yeah. So less knowledge and understanding means less clarity and seeing possibilities to choose from. So the fear to limit possible choices, a limited free will, is a more illusory free will where the choices people will make are already known by controllers and manipulators who set up the dialectic. Keep people ignorant. They don't know, in school, don't teach people about psychology and the trivium and objective morality. No. You can't give them that knowledge because that would empower them. You got to keep things very cloudy and very dirty, looking through dirty windows and limit possibilities because you can't see how there's different possibilities. You just got to keep things locked in uh, pathway 1 or pathway 2 or one of 5 pathways that all lead to the same slaughterhouse. It doesn't matter. You just got to keep
yeah,
things controlled and keep their perception, their worldview of possibilities very limited. So these people, they know what they're doing. They know that the choices, the availability of choices people are perceiving are already leading to outcomes that the controllers and manipulators know that are going to be produced anyways. So it's totally fine for them. Their behavior is known. They have more knowledge and understanding, which creates a power differential in behavioral potential. They manipulate others by engineering reality into problem reaction solution dialectics and get others to respond predictably to create what they want created into the world, which is the support for authority to control. That's what it's all about. Create fear. Fear of the boogeyman in the other nation, fear of the things in your own country, fear things everywhere so you want control because that's what the fear breeds is control. So then you want the authority. So fear this
fear
kid.
World War III.
Yeah.
Yep,
We need a bigger military. We need more weapons. So who's going to do that? Well, we need the government to do that. So we need more authority. We need to make the government bigger. We need more control.
yep,
So knowing why something has manifested, the slavery, means you're operating from the higher causal realm and can make the right choice to not continue to create that condition, to work to make it change. Truly. You can break out from the constricted, pre-selected, predetermined false paths of choice, not led by fear, and choosing something else. Free will can be used to escape the manipulated outcome. Ignorance and fear keep the illusion of choice going, being led by causal forces they don't see. They are moved by effects of orchestrated chaos, not knowing why the effect is happening. So as we're talking about chaos here, chaos there, people want safety, security, so they want authority to take care of the things. So they're being led by causal forces they don't see. They don't understand the causal mechanics. And this is the ignorance that's keeping them in the illusion of choice. So what the Merovingian was saying is, yeah, choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without in this context of the ignorant. There's that, well, it is an illusion of choice because you're being manipulated into a dialectical mechanics of pre-selected outcomes that no matter what choice you pick, the outcome is assured. And that's how they feel safe and in control, the manipulators, because they know what the outcome is going to be in
Yeah.
general, which is more enslavement, more control of everyone doing what they're told. And that's where I was thinking of the movie. Yeah, well, that's it. That's how it relates. That it's not that the heroes had an illusion of choice. They they listened to the oracle and they did what she said. They didn't understand why, but it was for an outcome that they supposed was beneficial to them. Again, this perception of good because they trusted her. Neo trusted her, um, and Morpheus trusts her. So they were like, "All right, this is gonna free us." Okay, I think that's what she told them. This is gonna free you. You need the keymaker, but I didn't understand totally why. So yeah, it was an illusion of choice between those with power. So the Oracle had the power in that situation because she knew why they needed the keymaker, but they didn't know why. And so, they were, I guess, kind of being manipulated by their belief and trust in her. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because in the proxy world that the social engineers have constructed, you know, yeah, what the Merovingian saying is 100% true because they control all the information, and like you said, they know what choice you're going to make because it's just a freaking, it's just a dialectic. But in the real world, we all have free will choice. So once you start to, snap out of that, you start to become aware of those dialectics and you see how at the end of the day, how government still wins, then you can make that true real choice, that 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 free will choice and understand that hey, there are different means, there are different options, but you have to pull yourself out and detach yourself from that slave system. um but now you want now you want me to, or like I have this feeling of going back and watching how the Matrix hell again tomorrow.
There's
Especially
such
the
good
second one.
movies.
Yeah, yeah. I always struggle between They Live because I'm a huge 80s fan. How They Live and how the Matrix, like how which one is better. Because I just love, like the straight 80s, like straight freaking 80s movies. And like They Live was just so simple, and then how the Matrix, it's kind of like how They Live, but like a more, like modern, like in your face, fucking, detailed.
Yeah, for me, Matrix hands down. They live probably Matrix 1, 2, and then They Live in Equilibrium. But Matrix is out of this world. So much like philosophy and understanding.
Yeah,
It's just amazing, amazing movies to break down, and yeah, and how it parallels our condition, and it's
yeah.
so well allegory.
And I don't even think most people really understood it. Even a lot of people who, think, they did, like they didn't really grasp the full context of what it was overlaying and, like the nature of reality and, choice and causality, you know, um, and that's displayed, because nothing's changed since, since since they came out in what, the late 90s, early 2000s, and things have only gotten
1999,
worse.
man, it's
Yeah.
crazy how well
Oh
that movie
man.
was made. It's like the
Man,
production level is so good, and the film is just, anyways, my favorite movie ever made. The
man,
first one,
those were the good years. Those were the good years.
yeah. The new one, I found the production level was like way shittier than the first few movies. The allegory might have been like more deep too in a lot of ways, as Pasio
Yeah,
broke down, but
yeah,
I found the production quality of the movie was diminished. It was
yeah,
not as
yeah.
good as the originals for sure, and that's like 20 years later, and you couldn't even make it as good. Like what the hell?
Well, with all the shit that's out there now, you know. And I enjoyed the philosophical part in the fourth one
Oh yeah, it's
way
really
more.
deep.
Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah, like the way Mark broke it down. Yeah, it's and it was just just confirming like, hey, y'all motherfuckers didn't even understand part one, two, and three because you saw how the reaction, had the part four. but the philosophy in it was just, oh man, it was brilliant.
Yeah, Pasio's breakdown is great. It makes up for the degradation in the production quality. Is
Right.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
allegory is just it's
Yeah.
really like there's a lot packed into that one movie,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
most people
What
like hate
a
it
lot.
because it's rated like 5 something on IMDb or something, and some people are like, don't make a fifth one. I'm like, yes, make a fifth one.
Yeah, as long as the philosophy is good,
Yeah.
but how people think philosophy is dead a dead subject. So,
Yeah,
it
well, they
just
don't even
shows.
see it. They're just looking at the production quality, which is what
Right. Right.
what I
Yeah.
say. Like, it's just, yeah,
It's
it
probably
was
done
a
on
step
purpose
down.
too.
What?
Yeah, yeah. It may be done on purpose because they knew people was going to come at it, just for the entertainment, the health explosion and stuff like that. And that's why I say I value that even more because, yeah, like all the eye candy hell is one thing, but it's the philosophy, it's the substance and the essence that's gonna make the movie for someone like me and the symbology, you know, for people like us, hell, screw all the entertainment stuff. Hell, I'm going for those small tidbits.
But the production quality is going to help um, sell it as something that's more consumable for people to pay attention to, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
like I'm not thinking of like They Live and like that one has its own flavor to it. It's like I'm not talking about that production quality. I'm just comparing the first Matrix and the
yeah,
second
yeah,
one with that fourth one. It's like yeah, there's just so many things I notice in it, and like the
yeah.
camera work and everything. It's all different. It's not as good, and yeah, that's just my
Hey, They
point.
Live didn't have much production quality in it. Like
Yeah,
it was
it didn't
just,
need to.
yeah,
It
no,
had a good sci-fi story in itself.
yeah, and like that's what kind of makes it a cult classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what else I got here. Yeah. So this relates to mentalism and correspondence, as we mentioned. So this is why it is the solution, the shadow work. As much as this is about the great work Launchpad, but that's why we're doing the shadow work, this ongoing aspect of the shadow work, of all this inner work that you need to do in yourself to get to doing the great work. It's because the great work is the solution, because the great work will get that knowledge of objective morality to people so that they can integrate it and then do the shadow work on themselves. So ultimately, this is all about shadow work. Because if people don't do that, then we can talk about objective morality and everyone can learn it. Every single person on the planet can learn objective morality, but if they're not going to integrate it with the shadow work, then it amounts to nothing. If they like, oh, well, thanks for teaching me objective morality, but I choose psychopathy and I want to just keep being a psychopath. Yeah. Well, then
Right.
nothing's going to
Yep.
change. So that's the importance of why this is the solution. Just to reiterate that in conclusion.
Yeah.
All right.
Knowing objective morality is one thing, but actually applying it is something different. It's a totally different thing, and that's what we are trying to get, is knowing is just the first part, but you have to learn to help apply it with the hands in your life, and you'll see it, with the ones who are involved, in your daily life. You'll see an effect, given enough time if you're doing it correctly. Just like you see an effect, if you don't understand objective morality and, you are building ignorantly.
Yeah. That's why we'll be getting into this the next time,
Mm,
which is the learning how to think. And that's why I said you gotta have that truth one. You gotta understand. You gotta seek truth. You gotta embrace and accept it. Accept the moral knowledge. You gotta embody and live it, and then share and speak it. And that's between teaching it and integrating it. Those are both hard things, but one's hard internally on yourself and facing yourself in the mirror, which people like don't want to do. A lot of people don't want to do that, so that's hard enough. And then there's the hard aspect of doing the sacrifice of all those personal things you want to do in your own life, in your own time, and then doing the great work to teach others. So that's hard as well. So a lot of people might do the internal work, but they relish and they do not want to do the teaching part because of all the things they just want to do for themselves. So both can be hard, and so for some people it might be easier to do one than the other, and for someone else it might be the inverse. So that could depend on each person. So next week I'm going to do what I've been putting off for a while, and that's the next part in the Law of Freedom. It'll be part 7 on reality affection. So that's relating to Ma'at. I'm doing some Ma'at scales and how reality affection, karma, and justice, and the law of freedom. Some 3 infographics, which could be like a big chart, but I broke it into like 3 parts. And it's a remake of an earlier version of reality affection that when I was looking at it, I was like, this isn't detailed enough. It's not precise enough. So I made it better. So that'll be next week. So I'll put that on if anyone wants to come on after, talk about it. You're welcome. If not, it'll be a short stream and it'll just be the video. And then the week after that, we'll get into the learning how to think, which will probably be, I guess, I think we could do at least 2 episodes on that. Go in depth.
Oh boy, that's real dangerous right there. Knowing how to think. Oh
Shit.
man. Oh, that's real
Terrorist.
dangerous. I know you a damn criminal, Chris.
Fucking criminal terrorists, man. What? You think for yourself? You do your own
I know.
research? Shit.
For real.
You're putting people's lives in danger there.
I know, man. My gosh, how can you? Like, how dare you?
How dare you?
Mm.
Yeah. So
But
those
now,
are the good.
yeah, hell, I should be available the next few weeks to join you. So
cool. So thanks for coming on by, Brandon. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thanks as always. It's always fun. Sadly, it wasn't any new guests, but there's always next week and the week after. But yeah, thanks for doing this, because I understand it is a sacrifice. So yeah, appreciate it, man.
Welcome. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. Hope you gained value, and see you next time. Take care. Peace.